TJ's there waiting.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's the brain of the mainframe here, Nile Scala, with our exciting 75th episode of Crowdfunding Comics. Billy Tucci, my friend, you hardworking man.
Holy crap, 75, baby.
75.
All right, man.
They keep racking up. We keep going. We keep going. No one's watching, but we keep going.
Oh, people are watching. Kidding me?
No.
We're rising stars on the YouTube.
Yes, we are.
We've had 75 positive, educational, entertaining, and instructional episodes, haven't we?
We have.
And we've had some of the...
Right, bro. Right. 75 great episodes and like 6 or 7 crowdfunding comic specials.
Yep. And it's great. I mean, look at this. We're getting fan mail now. We're getting super chats. Yeah. You know, we're almost at 2,000 subscribers. This is awesome. And now, tonight, we have a legend on, and someone who's a big name, who's just been announced as the new artist on Justice League. And well, why not you take us out, old chum? Why don't you do it?
Yeah. So tonight, everyone, we have the creator of Garbage Man himself, who's got his INDIEGOGO going, and it's going strong, Mr. Aaron Lopresti. Aaron, how are we doing tonight?
My wife just stepped in to add to the applause.
Oh, look at that!
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Hey, I wanted to say that this is the 75th episode, right?
Yes, it is.
Well, I started reading comic books in 1975.
What?
So it's fate or something. I don't know.
And Nile was born in 1975.
Well, okay, we don't need to go there, because now you're going to make me seem older.
Actually, 1984, if that helps.
Well, you started reading in 84, or you were born in 84?
I was born in
84.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, what are you going to do?
That year, the world got a little brighter.
I remember that. I was looking out the window.
I'm thinking 1984. Oh, my God. Yes. Joy Wolf in the prom. Oh, man. That was a good year.
It was a great year.
It was a great year. It was a great year. I voted for Reagan. The first time I ever voted. That was awesome. I had just turned 18 the August, of that, and that was cool, man. That was a good year. And I was on my way from a mere lark to a, I guess, heavier
lark?
Mental lark.
Well, so I'm only 2 years older than you, Billy, so I don't feel quite so bad. You look a lot younger than me, but see, when you're 65, I'll still look the same, but you'll look like this haggard old man. So,
and they'll say, "Whatever the hell happened to Billy Tucci?"
Exactly. Aaron looks the same. The guy doesn't age.
Yeah, it's a funny story because my brother-in-law has a baby face, right? Mm-hmm. And he lost his hair real early. Like when he was like in 20-something, like 22 or something like that, he started losing his hair. So he literally started like shaving his head when he was like 22 years old, right? Mm. And now he's 35, 36, and now he looks exactly the same. And like short hair's in, or a lot of guys shave their head and stuff. So he looks exactly the same, and That's just
well, at least you hung onto your hair, though. So you're the one who got the good genes.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, he's my brother-in-law. He's my sister-in-law.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I love, but I am getting gray here now, so I got to get a haircut because I don't want to see the gray, even though my wife thinks it's cute because we're growing old together.
Aww.
That's sweet.
Well, can't you go and get the stuff you just comb in?
Just for men.
Just for men. There you go.
Well, I want to grow. Well, I can't grow a beard. I haven't shaved since last Friday, I think. And I'll turn this off. Sorry. I just can't. I'm drawing a piece of art for the Return of the Warrior. But I grow in patches, so it just doesn't look good. And I try to smoke a pipe, Aaron. Now, Aaron, you could pull off a pipe.
Yeah, I'm not much of a drinker, and I've never smoked in my life. So it's kind of like, I might be able to look good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I suppose if I didn't inhale, I'd be all right. Just kind of taste it in your mouth and blow it. That's what you're supposed to do anyway.
Right? You don't inhale a pipe. Yeah, you just hold it.
It's like a cigar. You just hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, and and
It's
you
for
can use your
pointing.
pipe. Yeah, and you point now. See here, Lopresti.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
So,
Even
That's a
in Philly,
fine piece of art you have there.
old man, right? As I'm pointing my pipe at people, get off my.
yes. And you're a tall man, so you can look down on them. And we're getting to that age, Aaron. Right now, we can start referring to younger men as son, right? Look, son, right?
Oh no! Yes, you're
Yes.
true. It's true. It's
Yeah,
true.
but you can start saying things like young man,
Yeah.
or even better, like I've been using for a decade now. You there? Someone will walk by, like if you're at a restaurant or something, and I do it all the time. So a waiter will walk by, I'll be like, "You there?" And they'll turn because it just immediately they turn and it puts you in a position of superiority. I'm like, "Could we get some more waters at the table, please?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh yes, sir, of course." And he's probably walking away like, "Oh my God, I am now a servant to this man." So I love it. I even was telling Nile, but I don't think he knows who he is, that Nile does a great John Lennon, right? Is that who you do? Is that who you do best, John? You think?
John Lennon?
Yes, he does John.
John
So
Lennon,
he does. Before our show and before we brought you on, we always we do these English accents. We talk like that, but he's so good at it. But I'm thinking about changing mine to James Mason. And say night. Yeah. So I don't know if he knows who James Mason is, though. But I'm sitting here with Aaron Lopresti.
There you go.
I'm James Mason, and human, the center of the earth. So I got to practice it, but I think I can do a good James Mason, and that'll be my English.
Just keep practicing it.
Yeah, I'll keep practicing because it's
keep practicing it because it sucks. And I'm joking.
Yeah, it does suck. It's terrible right now. It sounded really good because I was practicing it in the room.
What voices do you do, Aaron?
Yeah,
let's put him on the spot.
I used to do Kirk pretty good, but I haven't done him in a long time. So,
can you do a Kirk? Can you try it?
Okay, let me think here. Okay, Spock, you got to get his attention.
No.
Beam me up. Sounds.
You're so good. Oh, that's great, dude. I love that.
We have to have you back on, if you will, because we have to have all of our guests who do accents, and we just have a show where we're all being someone else. And I'll be James Mason, and then you could be John Lennon. Aaron can be Kirk.
Kirk.
And we can get some of these
I'm much better with Kirk when I can read something, because rather than just make it up on the fly.
Right.
What do we got here? Well, this is an invoice. That's not very exciting. How could you possibly have? There we go. Please view your records to ensure you paid the invoice listed above. That'll do. Should you have any questions or problems, please contact accounts receivable. So, it needs work. I haven't done it I was really good in the mid 90s because I was in a studio and we used to do this stuff all the time.
Oh, really?
In fact, we had oh my gosh, we had a voicemail. Matt Haley did Dr. McCoy, and I did Kirk, and it went something like this. Yeah, I went, you'd answer the phone, right? The message would come on, and then Kirk would say, Bones, I've been bitten by the Gorn. What should I do? Yeah. No, wait a minute. It was, Bones, I've been bitten in the butt by a Gorn. What should I do? And he goes, well, Jim, I'm going to have to suck the poison out. And I'd go, but Bones, the Gorn's bite is not poisonous. And then there was just this kind of comfortable pause. And then he'd go, and then McCoy goes, leave a message.
That's great. So who were your studio mates back then, aside from him?
Well, boy, okay, it was called Studiosaurus, and we formed it in '95, and so it was me, Gary Martin, inker. Actually wrote a couple good books on inking that were published through Dark Horse. Terry Dodson, Rachel Dodson, Matt Haley, Tom Simmons, who was an inker for many years, Carl Kiesel, Ron Randall, who am I forgetting? And then I think, Matthew Clark came in later. And there was, Those are the original members. And then Ann, oh my gosh, if she's watching this, she's going to kill me because I can't think of her last name off the top. Ann Timmons.
Okay.
Came in late, and she's done some stuff with over the years with Trina Robbins, and so yeah, it was basically, oh, and Randy Emberlin was in there as well, and we were it was basically, how many guys can we find in the Portland area to help us all pay rent, so this isn't going to cost us,
Yeah.
So it was like $100 a month because we split it up. We had this nice place down by the train station in downtown Portland, and it was, we had about 1,200 square feet, so it was a decent sized studio, and it was really cool. And so we did that for about 3 years, and then, there was some personality conflicts that I won't get into right now. But eventually the thing kind of fell apart, but it was kind of a cool experience because up to that point, like most of us, we work at home, right? And it was just kind of an idea to kind of, for me, to get me out of the house, try something different, and it was really cool because we picked up a lot of commercial work, and so we were finding each other, work, and if someone was behind, it's like, hey, can you draw a couple pages? I did that for Terry on several occasions. And of course, if one guy's getting work, then that always leads to someone else in the studio getting work. And so it worked out pretty well for, like I said, for about 2 or 3 years, we had a pretty good time.
Yeah, and plus, I bet you it's almost like Jack Kirby and John Buscema, taking catching the 8:15 train into Manhattan, and then but you're going to work, right? And now you're there, so I got to work because it gets so easy, right? You can get so distracted being at your home studio, right? You know what I mean? So I bet you probably got a lot more done too. I think I would have.
Well, we screwed around a lot, as you can imagine. But what the great thing about it was kind of the same way when I worked at CrossGen, was that you have so many talented people around you, it really pushes you. You look over and see what Terry's doing or what Matt's working on, or, Ron or whoever, and you're like, okay, I got to do better than what I'm doing right now, So that was good. It got us to push each other. And we also first got our feet wet in some self-publishing at that period of time, because I was always, even as a kid, I remember calling Sparta Printing, who used to print Marvel books, like in Sparta, Illinois, right? And I called them, I think I was 18 or 19, to get a quote on printing my own comic, like I don't know what my plan was at the time, but so I've always been interested in doing that type of thing. And so I was twisting guys' arms in the studio. We did like a portfolio, a pinup portfolio. And then we did a couple of books. We did a book called Chicks with an X, right? And it was all, female superheroes, kind of making fun of the TNA market that
girl
kind
stuff
of
and everything.
Yeah, in the mid 90s. And we actually did okay with it through Image. But again, we had so many guys in the studio working on it that it, after a while, became problematic, trying to get everybody reeled in the same direction and getting the stuff done on time and, all that kind of stuff. But we did 2 issues of it. So I guess that's an accomplishment in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. So how did you, if you could tell our audience out there, you're amazing. You're by far one of the best draftsmen, one of the best storytellers in the industry, and your body of work shows that. If you remember, I approached you about that Captain America thing I thought was going to happen. What
happened to that?
I think morons. What a brilliant. It's just stupid people in power.
Can you disclose what happened with Captain America?
There was some weird, strange personalities working at Marvel at the time that either didn't like me, or it originally had started off as a Dave Stevens project, and they gave him hell over that, and it was weird. It was very strange. Those people aren't there anymore, so maybe I should pitch it again, because it's a great story. It really is. It's a great golden age Captain America story.
I know.
That'd be cool.
It's like the ultimate right there. Yeah. Still on board if you ever pitch it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, you're my only choice. But it's again, like it's cool because so many comic book pros respect you, and whenever we mention Aaron, plus I was talking to J.C. Vaughn today, who is the vice president of Gemstone Publishing, who puts out the Overstreet Price Guide.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God, I love his work. He's one of my favorites. So it really just is a testament of your work. But could you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into comics? How did you growing up, how was it growing up? You bought your first comic in 1975. We got that. Do you remember which one it was? What did you like to read? Did you go to art school? Et cetera, et cetera.
Well, okay. I like most of us probably, I started drawing at a very young age. I mean, I was like pre-K, I was drawing, but it was mostly cartoons, Flintstones, things like that, right? I didn't even know what a comic book was. About 1971, when I was 7 years old, we were on a family trip, and back then we didn't fly anywhere. We drove everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so we stopped at some store. I don't remember where we were at or where we were going, but they had it was really cool. They had, instead of having a spinner rack, it was one of those old kind of country stores that had like the big magazine displays, the wooden shelving and stuff. And they had the comic books set out there with the magazines. And my mom said, did I just freeze up? Oh, there I am. Okay. My mom said, you can get 2 books, right? And they were 15 cents a piece, right? So FF 112, the black cover, right? Hulk versus Thing. And then I bought Amazing Adventures number 7, which was the Neil Adams Black Bolt, or Inhumans, with Thor guest starred in it, right? And I don't know, I've always had a thing for Thor, and I can't even explain why. But so I got these 2 books. Now, I read the FF book, and it was great. It's typical John Buscema, action superhero book. Yeah. But that Neil Adams thing, there was like Black Panthers in it, and it was just really political and really weird, and it just freaked me out. But I read I loved the artwork, but I didn't understand what was going on. But the FF, man, I thought the Thing gets clocked by the Hulk at the end of that issue, and he's knocked out. You think he's dead, right?
Yeah.
Then, that was the only. I never read another FF book after that for years, so I thought the Thing was dead for years. When I started, and I can't remember exactly how it went down, but about 1975, when I was 11 years old, that's when I started buying comics regularly. And it's funny because I got into old comics about the same time I got into the new stuff off the stands. Because a friend of mine across the street, we all sort of, all the kids in the neighborhood got into the same stuff at the same time, right? We were into skateboards for a while, building models for a while. Then we got into comics. And there was some old bookstores over in Southeast Portland, and I've always lived on the west side. And he was out there, my neighborhood friend was out there for some reason, and they stopped at this bookstore. And he came back with a stack like this high of old comics. And I was just like freaking out, like, where did you get these things? It was like this, I had never thought of art in terms of narrative storytelling. It was always like just drawing pictures of Popeye or Flintstones or whatever cartoon happened to be on. And so I just fell in love with the art form. So I was buying old comics as well as new comics off the rack. And from that point on, from about when I was 11 years old, I think it was like 5th grade, that's all I drew was comic book stuff. I started creating my own line of comics, right? So I had, and it wasn't too much after that I discovered Bernie Wrightson, because I'd always been a monster movie fan for whatever reason. I mean,
yeah,
not necessarily, Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm talking about Frankenstein, the Wolfman, things like that. And so I discovered Wrightson kind of after the fact, because I'd found some of the Swamp Thing books that already made it to these used bookstores, right? So I'd got this whole run of Swamp Thing. And he was already off the book at that point, from the newsstand stuff. I think Redondo was on there at the time. But I started just searching out Wrightson, whether it was House of Mystery or whatever. And then, he jumped into the creepy and eerie stuff, which was just, killer, prime of his career. So that stuff.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, that really started to influence me. So I was doing, I always loved superhero comics, but I also, I'm sure you as well, grew up with a Frazetta influence.
Oh, yeah.
Influenced everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the 70s was a big time for sword and sorcery and monster books, because that's when the superheroes were sort of ebbing again, and they were trying to find new markets, right? So they came out with all the horror books. They came out with all the, Conan and Cull, Beowulf, from DC, and some of these other things. And that, Lord of the Rings became, again, really popular in the mid-70s. I think Ralph Bakshi's film came out in 78.
Yeah.
And so all that sword and sorcery and fantasy stuff, really, really big. Barry Smith's Conan. So I got sucked into all that stuff, and it really sort of influenced me every bit as much as the superhero stuff did. And because I followed Wrightson and Barry Smith and those guys and kind of kept my eye on them, they went out and started self-publishing, right, in the late 70s with their, Wrightson had Tyrannosaurus Press, which he was originally going to do the Frankenstein book through, and Barry Smith was doing Gore Blimey Press, and they were doing their own thing, right? And so even at I was 13, 14 years old at that point, thinking, that's what I want to do,
Yeah.
Do books for a while, then branch off and do your own thing and kind of make comics as a fine art form. And so I'm making this a kind of a long story. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No, tell your story.
Yeah,
People
please.
hear this. People love to hear these things. They never get a chance to.
So I was totally into comics. I was going to be a comic book artist. I had this whole plan, and then I was going to, do comics for a few years, then branch off and do my own thing like Wrightson and Smith did. But then I went and saw, and I've always been a film fan. I've always been a big film fan, but I went and saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it just totally changed my outlook because I thought, man, that looks like fun. That's like, movies are cool, but when you see a movie like that, especially as a young man, you're kind of like, that would be outrageously fun to make a movie like that.
Absolutely.
And we had an English teacher in our high school that was really into film, and he had taken all the old Super 8 cameras that they used to use to film all the sporting events with, because they were switched over to video about that time. And so he got all these cameras, right? So we had all these really cool, nice Super 8 movie cameras, and he started this film class at my high school. And so I took the film class, and a friend of mine, we made a movie, we won an award, and so then I started thinking film, right? So I ended up, long story short, I ended up getting into film school at USC, and I went to film school at SC. And I had, once I got out of film school, what I realized in film school was that I was going to school with Fred McMurray's daughter, and guys that, the son of one of the guys that was a character actor who was in MASH, and producers' sons and daughters, Academy Award winning cinematographer's daughter was, you know what I mean? And it's like, you sit there and you go, I'm from Smallville, Beaverton, Oregon, and I have zero connections, and all these people already have connections, right? Yeah. So I came to film school and really had no connections, and I started reading scripts at TriStar Pictures, and then there was a big writer's strike, and I was like, I'm sitting there in LA, and I got nothing to do, and so I started realizing what a long, hard slog it was going to be to get into movies if I could ever even make it, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So I started thinking, maybe comics wasn't such a bad idea after all. So I started, and I hadn't really drawn since I got out of high school, seriously. I screwed around and did drawings and stuff, but I hadn't really practiced. So here I am now, 25, I think. That's not true. it was about 25. So it was like 88 or so, 24. And I hadn't really seriously drawn since I was 18, since I got out of high school. So there's 6 years of just...
That's a big gap.
Yeah, it's a huge...
Yeah, huge, yeah.
So here I am, this 24-year-old, and I start doing samples, and I sucked pretty bad. And it kind of picked me off because I should be way better than I am, but I haven't been practicing. I hadn't been working on my craft. Yeah. So I did a couple comics for Blackthorn, who was like this independent publisher in the late 80s in LA, and they didn't last very long. But, and then I was sitting there in LA thinking, you know what? They have that San Diego Comic-Con every year. Why am I not going to this thing? It's within driving distance. So I prepped. I did a 20-page Spider-Man story.
Wow.
Not 5.
Wow.
Right? And it was at the time that they were doing Marvel Comics Presents. And so the boom was starting to get underway, right? So there was a lot more comics being published, and they were looking for a lot of warm bodies to draw. And so I went to the San Diego show when it was still back in the old building, before it switched over to the big convention center. Mm-hmm. And I went in there, and Terry Cavanaugh was there, who was editing Marvel Comics Presents. And I showed him this 20-page penciled Spider-Man story. And he flips through it, and he goes, yeah, this is not bad. He goes, I might be able to use you on something. Here's my card, right? And I thought, I'm in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, no, you're not. And so...
Because you don't have any connections to the comics industry either.
Right.
Yeah.
We couldn't email back then, right? It was like you mailed in your samples in a manila envelope and hope they look at them, right? And then you call them on the phone and hope they answered.
Yeah.
So
I remember the trick. The trick was to send it like priority mail or FedEx,
right,
because then it looks more important.
right. And then they open it up and go, oh. But
yeah.
but so it finally dawned on me. I figured out, well, hey, I'm going to actually have to go to New York. You know, I can't stand here in Oregon and try and call them on the phone and mail them, right, stuff. So, and at this time I had moved back to Oregon from film school, and I got a job at a commercial art studio, which those things don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot there because there was a couple of good illustrators that worked in this place in Portland, and we would do advertising art and storyboards and things like that for commercials. And so I learned a lot during that process, but I was trying to get into Marvel at this time while I was working in this art studio. So I'd save my money. I'd go back to New York about every 6 months, and I would crash the Marvel offices. And I got in good with the lady that was the receptionist at the time there. And she finally, you know, she liked me. She started buzzing me in when I didn't have any appointment or anything.
Oh, nice.
And so she would buzz me in. I'd walk in and I would just start looking for an editor whose door was open. Right?
Wow, that's ballsy.
I know.
That is ballsy.
I do that now, but back then I was like, you know, it's do or die, man, right? It's like you know, my education was in film, you know, so it's like, what am I going to do? This better work or I'm screwed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be, you know, working at McDonald's. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but wasn't my goal. And so I seriously, there was one time, this is funny. I was Terry Kavanaugh's office, right? I found his office and his door was open and he was on the phone. And so I sat in a chair. He had no idea who I was or what I was doing there, right? I sat in this chair across from his office, waiting for him to get off the phone so I could bug him. And he kept looking over at me, and I'd look and, you know, wave. And he finally closed the door while he was talking on the phone.
Oh, shoot.
And shut me out. But I kept bugging him. And finally I said, remember we talked, I was at San Diego. You said you'd give me a job and blah, blah, blah. So he gave me a Spider-Man job in Marvel Comics Presents, mainly because I was bugging him so bad.
Wow, okay.
So, but it was just like an 8-page story, right? So I took it home to Oregon. I did the 8-page story, mailed it in. It sucked. It was just atrocious, right? But then I kept bugging him because I thought I was in, right? I did a story, so they're going to want me for more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept calling and calling. And then he gave me like a Submariner a fill-in issue, which also sucked. And then finally what happened was I was able to hook up with Renee Witterstatter. I'm sure you know Renee.
Yeah, love her. Love Renee, yep.
And she was assistant editor, and she was doing that book, the humor book called What The? I don't know if you remember that at all, right?
Is it What If or What The?
What The.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And so I had this idea to bring back Forbish Man, who was in the Not Brand X comic from 1968 from Marvel. Was there like their little mascot, the guy with the pot on his head, and he had the long johns and the big F on his chest? He was the Alfred E. Newman of the book. And I said, I'm going to bring him back and do some adventures and stuff. And so I started doing those stories for her, which I wrote, penciled, and inked, right? Well, then everybody up there thought I was a humor artist, and so I couldn't get any superhero work. But I would keep going to the offices, and I remember this. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I had to redraw something in one of the panels, right? So I had this What The page out on one of their Marvel in their old office at the 387 Park Avenue South. They used to have all the offices were against the wall, and in the center was, you know, like drafting tables and production stuff. And so I was sitting there working on this Forbish Man story, right? Now, sitting just happened to be there at the same time, Tom Rainey, a young Tom Rainey, and he was working on this double-page X-Men spread, right? So he had this really cool thing going on, and I'm sitting there drawing this Forbish Man comic. And, I mean, we were there literally all day working on this. And editors would come by, and they would walk by, and they would look at Tom's and go, oh, man, that is so cool. That is so awesome. They would walk by me, look over my shoulder, and then keep walking. All day. And it was brutal. And, but eventually, because I kept hanging around, and, one weekend I was staying. Renee would put me up. Once I got to know Renee, and she was my editor, she would put me up in her apartment when I'd come to visit, right? And she's really good friends with Michael Golden, right?
Yeah.
And Michael at the time, I think, was during his short stint as the art director at DC. And so I got to meet him, and then he reviewed my portfolio, right, or my work. And basically, for the first time in my life, I talked to somebody who was able to communicate why my stuff sucked so bad, right? and what I could do to improve it, right? So I took this knowledge I got from him. It just really clicked for the first time. And so I drew like a 3-page sequence that weekend, because I was there for a week. And it was like, I came in the middle of the week, stayed the weekend, and then would, go the first couple of days of the next week and then leave. So in her apartment that weekend, I cranked out these 3 pages of a Hulk Wolverine story, right?
Yeah.
I took those in, and she got me a meeting with Danny Fingeroff. And Danny saw the stuff and said, hey, this isn't too bad, man. You want to do some backups for Spider-Man? And they were all like Aunt May stories and things like that. They were like fun stuff. And the first one I did sucked, and he fired me. And then I begged him. I said, no, let me do another one. I did some more samples. I said, because when you start working for Marvel at that age and it's your first job, you feel so much pressure. It's like, oh my gosh, if I screw this up, my life's over. And so as a result, you do your worst work instead of your best work, right? Because you're second guessing everything you're doing.
Right.
So he canned me, and then I came back with some new samples, and he said, okay, I think you got it now. And so then he gave me, I started getting some, like they had Spider-Man Unlimited, I think, was a big, thick book that had several stories in it. And so he'd throw one of those at me and, some different stuff here and there. And just when I was getting about, I think Nell Yomtov was editor there, and I did a Dark Hawk annual, and then he was going to put me on a Hawkeye miniseries. But I was at a convention, and some guys from Malibu came up and talked to me, right? And at this time, I was making $85 a page. That's what the penciling rate was, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the guys from Malibu were talking to me because they were about ready to launch the Ultraverse. And they offered me $135 a page.
Wow.
And I was like, I was no way I was walking away from that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I took it and did Sludge for them, which got me noticed. And the thing about that was the first time in my life where I had felt no pressure. The guys there were just kind of like, they just said, do your thing, man. We believe in you. And so I just did my thing, and it turned out pretty well. It was the first time I actually did stuff that I think is somewhat professional looking.
Yeah.
And so it really sort of launched my career. And then it's been kind of ever since then, it's been, a roller coaster up and down. I had some periods where I got blacklisted for a while and couldn't get any work. And then, which eventually let me, I got another story.
No, please do tell.
Go
no,
ahead.
we love this. People love this.
I'm so sorry.
Keep going. I'm so intrigued right now. This is great.
Okay. So I was doing stuff for DC, right? And they gave me a book called Tachyon. Okay.
Now, what year is this, Aaron?
This would have been 97.
Okay.
I think. And I had been finding work here and there, but not on a regular series, right? Because the Ultraverse had died, and then so I was just picking up whatever I could pick up at Valiant or at DC or Marvel, Yeah. And it was usually issue here, half an issue here, fill in there kind of thing when people were behind on their deadlines and needed, someone to do it, but nothing good. And so DC offers me Tachyon. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so it sold so horribly, okay, that they blame me for it because basically an editor was writing the book. So who's going to take the blame for the book failing?
Right.
Me, not the editor. And I literally got blacklisted at DC. They wouldn't hire me because they said, well, this guy can't sell a book. Let's move on. And that was going on. And I actually have inside sources who told me that this was going on. So here I am with no work for about 3 months, right? And then, Scott Dunbier, who I'd known for years, just as an art dealer, he kind of rose to power at Wildstorm, or was it Image or all of Image or just Wild?
No,
it was
I
just,
think that Wildstorm. I think it was just at Wildstorm.
yeah.
So
So
real good friend with Jim. I think he was at. Yeah, I think it was him at Wildstorm. I think.
yeah. And Mike Sellers was, I think, before him. And I knew Mike because he had done the lettering on my What the Stuff. So he started throwing me some Image stuff, some Wildstorm stuff to do. Pinups, whatever, right? And then then when Scott got charged, he was throwing me stuff to keep me, alive.
Yeah.
And so I was really grateful to them for that. But then I kept sending stuff out, to Marvel. I wasn't even worried about DC because I knew they weren't interested in me. But so I sent.
That's awful. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it sucks. and you look back on the Tachyon stuff, and it was some of the best stuff I'd done at that time. I mean, I really tried to do. I mean, it doesn't hold up to what I'm doing now, but back then it was pretty good. It's pretty solid stuff.
Right.
And so I sent the stuff in, and I get this call from the X-Men editor, right? And he says, Aaron, do you want to do an X-Men annual? And I was like, my first question was, are the X-Men in it?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, not really. And I said, no. So, I mean, here I am with no work, but I said, I'm not going to do this. Because if I keep doing work that no one cares about, then they're going to care about me.
Right.
So I turned it down, and I thought, man, this may be the stupidest thing I ever did. But then like a week later, same guy calls me back, and he goes, hey, do you want to do, we got 3 issues we need of fill-in stuff, 3 straight issues. And I'm like, yeah, of X-Men. I said, yeah, I'll do that. And Mark Morales inked me and did a terrific job. The stuff looked great, right?
Yeah, he's great.
Danny Mickey actually inked some too. So it was just like next level.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I ended up doing an Ultimate X-Men thing as well that Danny inked, that Jeff Johns wrote, and it just all looked really good, right? And so I get a call from the X-Men editor. Pete Franco was the assistant editor, and I think Mark Powers was the guy that was in charge at the time. And he says to me, he goes, Aaron, we really like what you're doing. He goes, we're grooming you to be the next big X-Men artist.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like freaking out, right? Thinking, this is it. I finally made it, right?
Yeah.
About a week later, both of them got fired.
Oh.
And I was done at Marvel. And then again, I had no work. So I went for about 3 months without any work again. And that's when CrossGen had started up. And Bart Sears came and talked to me at San Diego one year, and he goes, hey, would you be interested in coming to Florida to work? And I'm like, well, let me see. My job options right now are nothing. So
right. Yeah.
And so I went to CrossGen, worked there for 2 years, and did the best work of my career. In fact, everybody that worked there did the best work of their career.
Absolutely. Yeah, some of the most beautiful books ever made.
Yeah, they were
great
terrific.
Stories, just great. Sad. It was a great experiment,
But it was like you went into it, and I knew from a past experience, I was like, the way he had it set up, I said, this business model, this is going to collapse. There's no way. He's going to be able, because we were getting health insurance, we were getting salaried positions. I mean, it was really expensive what he was doing. Yeah. And so anyway, when that went under, all of us were suddenly attractive properties, right? So I called Marvel, and they, they were like, hey, yeah, we want you. And so I did a couple issues of Captain Marvel. Then I went on to Excalibur with Chris Claremont, did some X-Men stuff, ended up doing Planet Hulk, then did Ms. Marvel. And then from there, I jumped over to DC and started on Wonder Woman, and I've been at DC ever since. So there you go. I just wasted half your show.
No,
that's great.
No, that's great. That was probably one of the best origin stories leading up to your campaign that we've ever heard.
That is someone that actually really got into their origin story.
Yeah,
it's long and convoluted, but.
Well, now we have to have you on our show again. You got to come back on because we have to fill in all because we both have so many questions, but it's already almost 9:45. So
that's great. And I'm a DC guy though too.
So we can help you get you some money and talk about your property. But
that's great, Billy. That's great because me, I'm a DC guy.
Yeah.
So having Aaron on, it feels good right here in the heart.
Right.
and the old ticker. But yeah, I mean, let's get into the sole reason, you're here, and that's Garbage Man.
Yes.
Tell us about how Garbage Man came to be, and how you made it to Indiegogo with it.
Well, let me see if I can make a long story short. Probably not. I'm already
just flow with it, man, because this
you
is
have
such
dinner
an
cooking,
interesting
right?
and cool character.
Aaron, you have dinner cooking, right? Is that what you was telling us?
No, I'm not worried about that.
Well, the floor is yours, my friend. This is your show.
Yeah. All right. So when I went over to DC from Marvel, Dan DiDio and I started talking, and I said, one of the things I wanted to do was a little bit more writing,
Yeah.
And Dan was like, I don't care. And so then he said, speaking of which, he goes, we need a monster character. Because at that time, Swamp Thing was under the control of Vertigo. And Dan wanted it back in the DCU, and Vertigo wouldn't let go of it.
Oh, wow.
It seems kind of silly, right? But
yeah,
it was contractual things or whatever. And so I said, well, let me come up with a monster character, that's kind of in my wheelhouse. And so I created Garbage Man basically to replace Swamp Thing at DC, but I did it as a creator-owned book. And so then the contract was set up that basically DC could license the character from me with an open-ended license, but they had to use it over a certain amount of time, and if they didn't, then the rights would revert back to me. Well, I got about halfway through we did 2 miniseries at DC, so about 120 pages worth of material. Mm-hmm. And about halfway through the first miniseries, they got the rights to Swamp Thing back, and I went, okay, so now suddenly this character I created is completely obsolete in the DCU and unnecessary. Right. Well, so we did the miniseries, and nothing really came of it, and it just sat there and sat there and sat there, and finally, I was talking to him about getting the rights back, but I wasn't really pushing it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, because I wanted DC to do a trade paperback of this stuff, and I would have been perfectly happy, but they didn't want to do it because it was a creator-owned book, right? So, so they finally, this past August...
What year was this? What year was Garbage Man?
2009.
2009, okay.
Yeah, that's when I first created it. The miniseries probably didn't come out till probably right after my run on Wonder Woman, so probably didn't come out till 2011, but started working on it in 2009. And it was great because I had no editorial interference, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, right? And I had really no deadlines. It was like when I got it done, then they'd figure out where to publish it or print it. And so I did my best work on it. And I'm still extremely proud of how it looks. And so I got the rights back finally this past summer. And I started thinking, what I really want to do with this is I would love to collect it, because like I said, it had never been collected, the DC material. But I wanted to do it oversized because I really was proud of the artwork, and I wanted to do kind of like a European oversized format as a hardcover. So it was a graphic novel, but it would also be an art book, sort of.
Sure.
That's sort of what I had going on in my mind. And then I thought, well, how many people are going to buy a reprint? So I thought, well, what if I put a new story in there? That'll be that'll be the spice, right? You get the collected stuff, and you get a brand new story that's only going to appear in this book. And so, I saw what you guys were doing and what Ethan was doing and Mike Miller and some of these other guys. And I thought, I started looking into it and talking to them. And I talked to Carl Kiesel because he's done several projects through Kickstarter, and Greg Pak has done several things through Kickstarter. And so I was kind of weighing this Kickstarter Indiegogo thing. And it just seemed like the comic book market was really or the independent comic book market was heading into Indiegogo, and that seemed to be where the bigger numbers were.
Yeah.
And people doing art books tend to be more over on the Kickstarter side. I thought, well, this is more of a comic book launch kind of thing, even though it's kind of packaged more as an art book. So I decided to go Indiegogo with it, and I started my YouTube channel in August because I thought, well, if I get that going, that'll give me more ways to promote it. And so then I was planning on launching October 1st, but didn't actually get it launched till the end of October. And to be quite honest, I've taken quite a bit of grief I have a relatively high fixed goal on the book, right, of 35,000. Mm-hmm. And, everybody said the same thing, which was, hey, you do a lower goal, you hit that goal, then you'll probably go over the goal and end up making what you want anyway.
Right.
But I was too scared, and still am, quite frankly, that I didn't want to put a lower fixed goal on there that did not pay for the book.
Right.
And get myself in a situation where, let's say I put 15 grand on it and it gets funded at 15, and then I'm still like, $20,000 behind me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I know.
So I put it out there at 35,000. I said I'll be totally transparent with everybody and say, hey, I understand this is an expensive book to produce, but I thought if I made it affordable as a per item purchase, right? So I'm charging, it's a 170-page hardcover, oversized hardcover.
Wow.
For $35 with $5 shipping, right? And then I have the other tiers where there's, the autographed version or the limited edition version and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't put in a bunch of extras. Like you guys do a lot of extras. I know, like T-shirts and, cards and different things like that. But
I told my wife that does that, and she loves it because I'm like, really? People buying the shirts? She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
But it was too much for me to manage, Yeah. And so it's like you almost have to like go into this like, Ethan has, or, you or Mike Miller, where you guys are almost full-time into this independent market.
Yes.
You're constantly selling. Am I right?
Oh yeah. I'm on every day. I mean, last night, Nile and I, we had 2 shows and we went to midnight. And my show was midnight. And when you do these campaigns, I mean, we've said this before, is that when you're crowdfunding a book and you go all out, I mean, you're doing everything. So you're, Aaron, you're now the marketing department for 4 hours from, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Right. Then you have some lunch, and then you're the art department. But while the art department's working, the shipping department isn't working, and the marketing department isn't working if the shipping department's working. And if the writing, and the writing
PR department's not working,
the art department isn't working. Yeah, so you've got to juggle this whole thing, and and then answering questions. People have so many questions about tiers, and they come up with ideas. And can I combine this? I want to switch that, and that's like with my wife. Then she's still downstairs right now. Because it really becomes an all-consuming, as Ethan said, it's like a political campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is.
And the promoting is huge. It really is, because you need to keep it going. You need to keep it fresh, because once you hit, it's like a roller coaster, right? You're going up, you're going up, you're going up. Everything's going, numbers are flying, and then you're going to be moving fast and fast. But then all of a sudden, now you're going downhill again, and then you're kind of at that lull. You're waiting to get up again before you're ready to loop back around. So you got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, I'm doing some stuff with Billy on this too. I mean, like all day long, you're usually talking back and forth about different ideas to help promote and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a full-time gig, doing it.
Yeah, Nile will call me, and then if I'm working or I'll leave my phone in the car, which I do a lot, and then I'll look at my phone and it says, "You messing with me, bro?"
Come at me, bro. You messing with me?
Because he's working here. He's doing it, and like, what the hell is this guy? And I'm like, I'll just show up and ruin it. Don't have me book people. I'll ruin it. Because I'm like, yeah, sure, come on. I have so many people that are like, can I come on your show? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, you're on. Contact Nile. And I was like, dude, we're booking guests into February. And this guy's campaign is ending tomorrow. We can't have him on, and then I feel shame, But
and then you got to schedule 2 shows in one night. I mean, it's no big deal. It's no big deal,
Oh gosh, I can't even imagine. And see, that's the thing. I wasn't completely naive when I went into this, because I talked to all you guys more than once.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was getting into, but at the same time, I realized that I can't produce all this extra stuff because I just don't have time. Because I'm still, like I said, I'm still drawing regular books for DC. Yep. So I only have so many hours a day I can do this. Right. And so when you look at my campaign, it's very different looking, I think, than a lot of guys. There's only about 4 tiers, right? And it's all about the book. There's no extra stuff in there because I couldn't handle the workload right now.
Yes.
So I am, so I'm rolling the dice in a lot of ways. I've got a high fixed goal, which is dangerous. I don't have a ton of tiers. So what I'm really looking at is I have to get numbers.
Yeah.
I have to get 600 people to back this campaign, probably to get it to work. And when you start out, you think, I can get 600. Come on, 600?
Yeah.
But that's a pretty big number when you start, looking at it and realizing that, you may have 8,000 or 10,000 people following you on social media, but you're lucky if, less than, if 5% of those people actually are going to be people that'll contribute to whatever you're doing.
Right. If you had to pay to be a follower or to like something, there'd be a hell of a lot less followers and likes on you know what I mean, on your Twitter feed and your Instagram thing.
That's for sure. That's for sure. But so the best I can do is, and the other thing I'd hoped was, because Garbage Man had been published before, right, through DC, and it was buried in some kind of obscure miniseries. So I know it didn't have a huge following, but the first couple issues sold around 19 to 17,000, and by the last issue, the second miniseries, they were down to 11 or 12,000 copies, right? But that's still, you're still looking at 19,000 people that at some point had been exposed to this character.
Right.
And you're thinking, if I can just get 600 of those people out of that 19,000 to come back, So it didn't seem like it was that daunting, but now I've got 2 weeks left, and I'm about 30% towards my goal, and you start to realize this is a daunting task to get, 600.
But you can, you know what I mean? Like I guess hopefully tomorrow night you and I will be on Comic Artist Pro Secrets, and EVS is a great host. He really is, and he galvanizes his fans, and they're amazing. They're amazing. These people, how they come they come through for you. You know what I mean? They want you to succeed. And another thing with your 14 days left, though, too, is that you can always expand it. You give yourself a break. You can expand that campaign another 60 days if you'd like, even. If you want yourself a little breathing room so you can work on your stuff and go at it at your pace. You know what I mean? And, think about it. When someone publishes a book, it's not just 30-day campaign. And then, here we go. We're going to go with it. Look at it. When you solicit a book for Diamond, you're soliciting a book. You send in your solicitation. Say a book that's coming out in March. You solicit that book to Diamond in like October. It gets to previews in December. They have from the whole month of, say, January to the February to solicit it. You know what I mean? And then the orders come in, and then you have that book in March. So it's like a 5-6 month, stretch with ordinary mainstream comic books. When you're going to the comic shop. So you should give yourself a break. If you are stressed out, I got 14 days. I think you're going to do it, especially if you go on Ethan's show. But you should also give yourself some time. And you can go in there and say, I'm going to make it. I'm going to add another 30 days. And or even 6, and then you use the success like you announced today as a regular artist on Justice League. Now you can use that news that came out this morning, right, or yesterday. Yesterday. Now you can parlay that, and you got to be. There's only so many hours in the day, right? Because you don't want to blow those deadlines. You don't want to blow that gig. But, don't blow that fucking gig.
But Justice League and get fired. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's. But giving yourself that extra pillows, that nice, that like you said, that pillow, that breathing room, if you'd like, you can then, you know what I mean. Now you can work at a more hectic pace because this is your first campaign, and you didn't just put out a 24-page. Floppy comic like most people do their first time out of the gate. You're doing a massive hardcover premium edition coffee table style size book. That is how many pages?
Well, it's going to be between 160 and 170 pages.
Oh wow!
Right? Right, Nile. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say me. I was going to say because what did you do? Did you do a 30-day campaign originally?
40 days.
You did 40 days? I would extend it because now that you're starting to squeeze in the shows, how many streams have you done since you went live? 3, I think, 3 or 4. Yeah. Okay. So, I would keep continuing hitting the stream circuit. Obviously do your research on your streams, streams and stuff like that to see, if it'll help or, if it'll help you or hinder you. But, definitely get on the stream circuit again. Like Billy said, start promoting what you're currently doing as well and some more history of the character. And I would extend it because once you start getting on certain people's streams, you can potentially reach goal. And then on top of that, you can go in demand. So you can then take a stretch of leaving it in demand while you start getting everything finalized and together.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I chose Indiegogo because of the in-demand feature. Because I thought there's always got to be a good number of people that kind of come in after the fact and go, oh, hey, I'll get that. And but you got to reach your goal before you can go to in demand, right? You can't just
correct.
Yeah.
Well, like going on Ethan's show, I mean, if you don't get funded, it'll probably give you a really good boost. And I'm gonna head over to your Indiegogo page. So right now, everyone, I'm gonna actually just refresh it just in case. So you're currently at 152 backers. I'm gonna refresh the screen. So you're at 153 backers now, right?
Picked up one during the show. All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
So you're currently at 28% funded, and you're at $35,000 is your fixed goal. What I want to do is I'm going to play the video for the viewers out there, and then once we're done with the video, we'll get back into discussing your campaign.
Okay.
You may be asking yourself, who is Aaron Lopresti? I've been drawing and writing comics for over 25 years, and in that time, you may have seen my work in Amazing Spider-Man, Deadpool, Excalibur and other X-Men projects, The Avengers, and perhaps my most notable Marvel work, Planet Hulk. If you're a DC Comics fan, you may be familiar with my work in Wonder Woman, the Justice League, or even the iconic Batman. Now that you know me, let's get to know Garbage Man. Back in 2009, I created Garbage Man for DC Comics, and the character appeared in 2 separate miniseries. Part monster, part superhero, and part man searching for a purpose and meaning to his new identity that has been thrust upon him. Richard Ethan Morse was an attorney working for the mega corporation Titan Pharmaceuticals. When he stumbled upon some of their illegal financial dealings, he became immediately expendable. Morse was taken and used as a guinea pig for Titan's secret government-contracted human growth project. But when the test failed, Morse, along with the lab, were destroyed to hide the evidence. But Richard Morse did not die in the explosion. Instead, his remains merged with the refuse from Titan's garbage and chemical waste dump to become the vengeance-seeking monster hero, Garbage Man. Now, 10 years later, the rights to the character have returned to me, and for the first time I'll be collecting all 120 pages in one volume. But there's more. 11 pages of new material will be added to the original story, along with a brand new, never-before-seen Garbage Man story. All of this in a limited edition, collectible, European-sized hardcover graphic novel. Don't miss this opportunity to join me for an exciting adventure in the classic tradition of the original Swamp Thing and my earlier work on Malibu's Ultraverse character Sludge. If you are a fan of classic comics with industry-leading art, Garbage Man is the project for you.
It's such a beautiful book. Like,
you're
all
all
the work
amazing.
it's amazing, Aaron, and absolutely amazing. Now, give us a little backstory on the actual character, though, or a synopsis of the story. What kind of story can the backers expect when they actually receive the book?
Well, it's I put it together to be sort of not to reinvent the wheel in terms of monster books. It's I wouldn't say it's formulaic, but it's comfortable in terms of what we're used to seeing from traditional monster hero books. But the character is Richard Morse, who is an attorney. He works for a law firm that represents Titan Pharmaceuticals, which is this big, pharmaceutical giant. And he accidentally stumbles on to some accounting problems, like perhaps some money laundering issues and things. And so he's not necessarily looking to blow the whistle on him at all. He's just trying to get some clarification as to what's going on because, he represents them, right? Well, they have different ideas. So he's sent out to their main facility, research facility, which is outside of town. In this case, it's Gotham City because I had worked Batman into the story, which now I have to remove and put in my own characters, which is kind of exciting and fun because I have some other characters I've been wanting to use, and they're going to go in and replace Batman in the story. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's so cool.
So he basically there's this kind of mad scientist guy there that the main research scientist for Titan, who gets him. They basically kidnap him, strap him to the table. They're working on these human growth experimental drugs as a military contract, and he's basically uses him as a human guinea pig Well, he mutates and gets all, basically it's not working. So to cover up the evidence, this lead scientist, blows up the lab that he's in, and his remains and everything kind of spew out into this, basically where their dumping site is behind their plant. And so it kind of, because of this chemical that he was injected with, and then he's basically buried in all this refuse, he reforms as this monster, this garbage man, which so then he has to and he starts getting his memory back in bits and pieces, right? So we start at basically the beginning of after he's already garbage man, and then he starts to flash back, and we start to get pieces of what happened to him, and then he starts to remember what happened to him and put it all together. And so his big picture journey is to bring Titan Pharmaceuticals to justice and to get himself changed back, right? But along the way, he's fighting other monsters that he comes across that have been created through, wrongful experimentation. And so there's a lot of monster fighting going on. There's a big werewolf type monster that's kind of a cool issue. There's a swamp thing type creature that he has to deal with. And eventually he gets himself back to Gotham City, where Titan Pharmaceuticals is. But he had met this hobo on a train in the first miniseries as he's heading back towards Gotham City, and this guy ends up being this sort of out of favor Christian pastor who is working with these homeless people underneath Gotham City. So that ends up being a refuge for him, because he has no place to go. He gets to Gotham City. He's like, what am I going to do now, right?
Yeah.
And he remembers he met this guy on the train, and so he sort of lives with this population of homeless people under Gotham City.
Oh, it's cool.
And so his best friend is kind of like this, evangelical pastor who gives him this, words of wisdom, and gives him good advice once in a while. And so he's trying to bring down Titan Pharmaceuticals, dealing with monsters that then, of course, show up in the sewers as well, because you got to have dinosaurs in the sewers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But it's really, there's a lot of monsters in it, but there's also this story of personal redemption, right? Because he realizes as a person he made a lot of mistakes, and now this is what's happened to him, and it's, can he be cured? Can he be changed back? And if he can't, what does that mean for the rest of his life? What is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to become a hero? And so there's a lot of these kind of issues that go with it, make it deeper than just, monsters fighting monsters, even though there's plenty of that in there, because, that's the
you need that.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you need that. Right. Yeah.
Got to have the monsters in there. So it was, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm Neil Gaiman or anything, but I think it's more layered than you might expect.
Oh, that's
Pretty
awesome.
badass.
Now, wait, did this book ever actually hit shelves?
Yeah.
It did. Okay. All right.
It's 2 miniseries. Originally it was going to be its own regular series, right? Yeah. And then Dan changed his mind and said, no, we'll do it as a miniseries. I said, okay, that's fine. And then he comes back to me and says, no, you know what we're going to do? We're going to run it as a backup in the Batman books. And I was like, well, actually, that might be pretty good, because a lot of people see it, right? Because you're going to Batman. And then he goes, nah, we're not going to do that either. So it ended up being the worst, which was an anthology miniseries, right? Mm-hmm. So they took the Weird Worlds title, which they had a book back in the 70s, and it was all basically Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff in the 70s, early 70s, called Weird Worlds, right? And so basically they said, okay, we're going to do this Weird World miniseries, and it was an anthology. So it had my story. Kevin Maguire did a thing called Tanga, which was this alien space babe, and then they ran a Lobo miniseries in it. So this went for 6 issues, right? We each had 10 pages in there to do our thing. So that was the first 60 pages. And then, so all of us had these cliffhangers, except, well, the Lobo story didn't. It wrapped up. But mine and Kevin's story, we're only halfway through.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So we were going to do a second miniseries, but they didn't launch it on the heels of the end of the first miniseries. It was like a 4-month gap.
Oh, yeah.
And then they launched the second miniseries, and it wasn't even Weird Worlds. It was now My Greatest Adventure. So with a Robot Man story in there. So they had our 2 stories and the Robot Man story. And so I had and so we ran through 6 issues of My Greatest Adventure, and that sort of wrapped up the initial story. And I would have people coming up to me at shows having me sign the My Greatest Adventure comics. And I'd like, hey, did you see The Weird Worlds, the first part? And they're like, what are you talking about?
Oh,
the whole pages that happens before what you started reading here. And they're like, no wonder. It seemed like it started right in the middle of something, and I couldn't figure out.
Jeez.
So you can see why I was desperate to have this thing put into trade paperback, so it was all together and could be read, as one big long story. So that's kind of how it came out in the DC format. But yeah, so it's, there's people out there that read the first miniseries, didn't read the second, or read the second one and never realized about the first. And so I really want to get this collected as a one big unit. And so the thing that's kind of cool about it, as I mentioned earlier, is Batman's in it for only about on 11 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go in and redraw those pages, but put in my characters instead of Batman, when I have characters that work really well. So
who are the characters? Like, who are you going to replace Batman with?
They're way back in the 90s when I was coming up with a lot of stuff I was going to self-publish that never got around to publishing. Was a group called, originally it was called Creeps, but Dan Mishkin and Tom Mandrake did a series called Creeps, and they got it out before I got mine out, so they have the copyright and I don't. So I had to change the name of my group, which is now called the Night Club, and they're right now they're people with kind of creepy powers. There's one guy's a leader who right now his name is Mr. Midnight, and I think that's safe to use, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm still checking into that. His name may change.
It's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
That's right. Then there's a female character who has like the power of the golem, right? So she's like this stone girl that's called a sculpture. And then there's another guy that is like liquid metal, and his name is Metal. Pretty original. And so they're like this core group of guys called the Night Club. And then there's other weird mutant characters that would join later and could expand the group. But that initial 3 people are going to appear in this Garbage Man book and take the role on of Batman. And it works really, really well because Batman's not an integral part to the story. He just sort of helps define what Garbage Man has become physiologically, and what are his chances of being cured and all that kind of stuff. And so I have my main guy is in the Night Club group is the scientist guy, so he can perform that same function that Batman did. Sure. And then you get the other characters in there, so it'll work out really well and be cool, and it'll be their first appearance. And so then the extra story that I'm adding on, the brand new story, was originally going to be the part 6 story that I didn't end up using. And it's basically this old guy who lives out in the woods by himself, not far from the Titan Pharmaceuticals plant. Well, he gets a couple barrels that were left over once the plant is shut down and full of toxic waste, right? And he has like a family cemetery near his house. So he's got these barrels full of this toxic chemicals, and they leak out and pour into the graveyard and bring back his entire family as zombies.
Dude, that's awesome. See, that's what comics should be about. See, look at that. Look how great that.
Living in his house, these zombies, and that's in Garbage Man, of course, comes across them and mayhem ensues. But so I was originally going to use that story in the first run, but I changed it to the Swamp Thing story, and I can't remember why, because I thought, this is too absurd. That's what it was. No one's going to buy this. And I remember Joey Cavalieri, who's the editor, was like, I don't know, I think that's pretty good. You should have used it. And I was like, maybe I should have, so now I'm going to.
Joey's great, too, because he would do all off the... he's always open to off-the-wall things or different types of, characters and stuff like that. Great job.
And the new Garbage Man story that's going to be in the book introduces potential for a new villain, a couple of new villains as well. So it kind of like creates a stepping stone to a bigger picture, so.
Yeah, you have to, this book's got to be funded, and you will. Like I said, you go on Caps tomorrow, you will get it funded. But the thing too is that I would seriously give yourself, you have so much going on. But also that, again, you get all this great high-profile press, and And you should do that because, again, you want this book done, and you can get it done, obviously, and you will get it funded. You can get it funded in the 14 days, but that's a lot of work, you know? I mean, you're going to really have to bust your ass to do that.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm busting my butt at least, and it's you know, to get where I'm at, you know, and it's kind of like, wow, can I afford more hours a day to promote this? But
but if you expand it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Stuff that lead time. Why not?
I would extend it. I would expand it.
Well, that's a giant book like that, right, Nile? I mean, it's a giant.
That's a giant book. That's going to be a good read. It's a nice, you know, European size, 8 by 12 roughly, right?
Right. The good. No, it's 9 1/4 by 12 1/4. So it's pretty good size. But
that's a good size book.
The easy thing for me is I'm only doing basically 22 pages of new work.
Yeah.
So it's something I can get done. You know, it's not like, you know, 48 or I'm not drawing 170 pages, right? 120 of it is already stuff that's done. There'll be some sketchbook material in there that no one's ever seen before. I got some pinups that some people are working on. Danny Mickey's inking a piece I did. It's nice. Well, the one pencil piece on my campaign, not the one with the pumpkins, but the other one, Danny Mickey's inking that, and he's about 2/3 done with it, and it is brilliant. I mean, it is.
That right here.
Look at that! Oh my God! Yeah, you guys are great. You're great, man. And I can just imagine Danny's pencil inks on that. Wow,
dude, it is phenomenal. And the other one with the pumpkins is part of the limited edition book. So there's like a print. That one I'm penciling, inking, and coloring myself. But that, because I don't want a limited edition print that I have to send to 3 different people to sign, right?
Right.
So that's going to be tipped into the book. In other words, it's going to be attached to the inside front cover of the book, that print. And that comes with the limited edition version, and that's the only place you'll be able to get that print is through the limited edition version. So I've got that piece as well as the replacement pages, the Batman replacement pages, and then the new story, which right now is about 13 pages. I may expand it to 14. And so that'll make up the entirety of the book then.
Oh, very cool. And Art Thiebert has joined the show and says congratulations to you, Billy, on your success with She, and he looks forward, Ari looks forward to Garbage Man.
Well, Art's a fine gentleman. He's older than me, so he's. It's nice that he's still, as an older gentleman, showing me respect. I appreciate
that he's still awake. Is that what you're trying to say? No.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. And we're actually working on getting Art on the show soon too.
We were on Mike Miller's drawn and quartered thing last Wednesday, and I was taking a lot of heat for being the old man and of the group. And then Art, who's like 5 years older than me, I'm like, dude, come on, seriously?
So Art was silent the whole time.
He was dishing it out, man.
Oh, he was. Oh, I thought Art would just be like.
No, he was dishing it out.
You know.
So what's the weather like today?
Yeah.
So I have to ask. I mean, you know, with Garbage Man, I mean, what are his abilities? I mean, he's got this massive forearm.
Well, that's kind of like a concrete. That's like his, you know, bust him up fist, you know, punch through walls kind of thing. So he wouldn't normally be able to punch through a wall, but with that fist he can, kind of thing. And then the color spots on him are toxic chemical spots. So basically he's well, there's a story where this werewolf thing tries to eat him and it doesn't work out too well. But so he's not necessarily toxic by touch, although they're kind of warning, you know, Batman gives him kind of the warning, you know, be careful. But what he can also do is he can, like, it's like a monkey flicking poo. He can, like, throw junk at people, you know, like parts of his body and things like that. So he could throw the chemicals on somebody and burn their eyes out if he wanted to, right? And but he's basically, you know, and he reforms, okay? So if he loses an arm, but he has to be around something that he can gather up to become part of him. So if there's a scene in one of the things where he takes a shotgun blast to the chest, you know, and he's temporarily, you're not sure if he's dead or whatever. And I shouldn't be giving this away. This is the cliffhanger to the first 6 miniseries. He gets blasted in the chest with a shotgun, falls into this river, and kind of floats upstream to Gotham City. Well, he's all emaciated and stuff by the time he washes ashore into this kind of like garbage dump. but then his body like collects all the dirt and garbage around him and sort of reforms him, right, and revitalizes him. So then he's almost like a stick figure. He's just emaciated from being in the water and losing parts of himself, but when he's back into some mud and some gunk and trash, it just kind of draws into him and reforms him. So he can actually become, he could end up with a toilet seat on his back or something like that.
That's crazy. What's his weakness, though? What is Garbage Man's weakness?
That's a good point. I think emotionally he's weak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because he gets blown up and he just reforms. I suppose if he was not someplace where he could gather back together something, that would be the end of him.
Yeah.
Because eventually he would not be able to, because he's not, if he like, for example, if you blew him up and he was totally dispersed on a concrete surface that didn't have any cracks or anything that it could get into and sort of absorb, that would be it. So he's vulnerable in the sense that I could chop his arm off with an axe if I wanted to. I'd cut him to pieces eventually. But it's more that he's a lot like Swamp Thing in the sense that he's a consciousness embodied in all this that makes him up.
Trash,
It's not like a brain and it's not like a functioning organs.
So he's like an energy.
In a sense, yes.
What's left of him, yeah.
What's left of him, yeah. And he uses that energy to pull himself together, but obviously certain material that it only works with.
Right, that's the big question. What's left him? Is it just his soul? Does he still have his soul in him?
I love that.
Or what part of the man is still left in there that's him? His consciousness. What does that really mean? And so those are kind of some of the ideas that we start exploring in the series in between fighting all the monsters.
Yeah. Is that it's cool because... sorry.
No, go ahead. You go.
I was going to say, it almost kind of... I know like it's like like you said, it was like a Swamp Thing inspired character, but it kind of also... when you're talking those lines, it almost reminds you a bit of like Clayface from Batman.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what is he? Is he, because he can just kind of disperse, go away, you can blow him up this and that, and all of a sudden he kind of just comes back together, right? So how much of the man is really there?
I'll rip off anything I can.
Well, what's fun about it's cool because you can have all this fun stuff. You can have fun, fighting the monsters and all these interesting monsters you can draw and these other abominations that you can draw and bring into the story. But then you can also have the fun part where he loses his arm, and well, what the hell am I going to use? There's a discarded trash can or something. You know what I mean? Or a toilet paper roll or something. He's got to use that. But then it's such a tragic story though too.
Oh yeah. I mean, what do you do at that point, right? Yeah, you're mentally sound, but you can't have a normal life or relationship or anything. Like you're truly alone.
Right. That's the big issue he deals with, and starts and is trying. By the end of the DC material, he's starting to try to find a way to come to grips with his reality. But something like that obviously would be easy to do, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so that's one of the big things that I enjoy in writing the character is, he's got a lot mentally and spiritually to overcome to figure out who he is, what he's become, and what his purpose is going to be going forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
So,
amazing.
Yeah, no,
stuff
you've got,
there, man.
I mean, guys, you've got to check it out, please, everybody. Pledge it, share it. Most importantly, pledge if you can. If you can't pledge, share. But we've got to get this book produced.
Yeah, I mean it's gorgeous, man. It is gorgeous. I love this. We'll keep sharing this, man. We'll keep sending it through our channels. We'll do whatever we can to get this funded for you. Because to be honest, I would like to have that book in my studio. You know?
And also, and absolutely, really push your social media, Aaron, and definitely give yourself some more time.
Yeah, give yourself some more time.
Yep. I absolutely would do that. I would go on, explore it tomorrow or something, and see if you can extend it at least another 30 days, maybe 60 days. Because now that you're starting to do streams. You did the stream last week. You're going to be on tomorrow with EVS. You're on with us. You're in the news now with the new announcement for Justice League. It's almost like a whole new campaign, and you're already $10,000 ahead of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a great strategy.
I do have one frustration, though, gentlemen. we've got, you get all these platforms, right? All these streaming platforms for, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, this and that. DC has their own. Why aren't they going after properties like this? Right?
Yeah.
Something truly unique and fun, I mean, where would you?
There's a lot of crap in development.
There's a lot of crap out there, and there's all these great books and stories. And what's great about this is what was this back in 1999, and now it's coming back. Now you're bringing it back, and I mean, such a great property. I mean, sound is from what I've read in the Indiegogo description, it was, what was it?
2009.
Yeah, 2009.
Or 2009. I'm sorry, 2009. I mean, it's such a great property. It's a shame, because we see all these all these creations, Billy, right? And it's like, man, they could be so much more,
Yes.
So much more. Now, in saying that, I mean, what are, I'm leading into this with, what are your future plans for Garbage Man?
Well, it's going to depend on this book, I think, and the popularity of, if I can generate some popularity for this single book.
Yeah.
And then it all becomes to the next step, right? It's like, can I crowdfund an actual comic? Could I actually raise enough money to crowdfund a comic? Would I then maybe have to take it to Dark Horse or Image or something like that, so that I'm exploring that right now. This isn't the end of the road, because I'm setting up some other stuff in the book that I would like to pay off, but
you can always do your little boutique publishing, and you make your exclusive editions for your backers.
Yeah.
And, we all completely appreciate our backers because of that. They are engaging with us directly, and they're taking money out of their own pocket to support you, Aaron Lopresti. So if you have your boutique thing, do your limited edition book, say it's 1,000, say it's 2,000 copies of it, then you take it to Dark Horse, and I'm sure like a company like Dark Horse or Image, they'd be more than happy because of your name, and then the book's already done and paid for.
Right.
And let them handle the comic shop thing. Right. And then you go on, and then you move on to your next project. And then if you want to just do a 32-page comic,
Yeah.
in between doing all your big A-list, mainstream books. It could be a very fun and I think very fulfilling existence. And then, San Diego, where we see each other all the time, you have your little setup, and there's your creator-owned books, and then there's your nice stack of, Justice League, Wonder Woman books, graphic novels, all that sort of thing.
Right. But, the reality is, as we get older, the less desirable we are to the industry anyway. So it's kind of like, that's one of the things I'm thinking as well, is kind of like, there's going to come a point in time where they're just not going to call you anymore for whatever reason. And it's like, you want your properties out there so you have something to do.
Yes.
Once, the regular stuff dries up.
Yep. And the hell with them.
That's,
which is such a shame, because not for nothing. I mean, the more, you guys are so talented, right? And it only gets better and better with time. I mean, the quality of the art and everything. It's a shame that it seems like, it's kind of like, as you're getting older in the industry, you're getting pushed aside, but your work is impeccable.
Well,
and some of the newer artists that are coming out, it's kind of like, what is this shit?
Well,
yeah.
I think.
Well, I'm sorry.
Say with me, it's just I've always kind of been looking over my shoulder my whole career. So I've always been working hard to improve. I've never been comfortable in a position where I felt comfortable that I could just kind of relax.
Yeah.
Which has ended up being a good thing. And so it's like I can look at stuff that I'm doing, at 55 that is better than what I was doing when I was 35.
Absolutely.
Because I've always been scared that every job is my last. So you're always working hard to be better.
Yep.
That's what you should be doing.
Well, drawing's a skill, it's it's like any other, it's like any trade you do or anything. I mean, the more you do it, the better you get at it,
Yeah.
So it's I always just find it interesting that they want to, maybe it's for financial purposes, who knows what they decide to do in these big, these big publishing companies, but it's like, obviously the quality of the work gets so much better over time because you are constantly drawing. You're always improving, you're always learning, new techniques, trying new techniques. That it's always a shame when you start all of a sudden you don't see certain artists working anymore, right? And you got these people that come in, and don't get me wrong, some of the new artists that come in are great, but there's also ones that you're just kind of like, I've literally opened books, and because the story may be really good in it, as an artist I want the visual, right? But it's just sometimes things are just so abstract that I'm like, this isn't like for me personally, I'm like, this really isn't like a comic to me, you know?
Yeah.
It gets a little awkward.
Well, I think it's like the movie industry. I mean, it really is a small movie industry,
Yeah.
in that you've got turnover in editorial, so you've always got new, younger people coming in editorial, and of course, they're more comfortable working with young people that they can say they discovered, and so I think that that's a big part of it. You just kind of age out of an industry because everybody up at that's doing all the hiring and stuff keeps getting younger, so therefore they're more apt to hire younger people, or maybe they say hire, like Marvel's doing, is hire cheaper people.
Yeah.
So we don't have to pay as much.
That's exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
I mean, but it's not unexpected, or certainly it's not something that's going to sneak up on me. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then TJ James just asked, he goes, Nile, can you ask Aaron if any of the Ultraverse characters reverted to the creators? I guess maybe getting ownership rights.
Marvel has the rights to those, and because the people that helped create those characters also have an ownership right in those, Marvel will never use them because then you'd have to pay us extra money for using them. So that's why those have been kind of buried in the vault and never been used.
Do you know what happened to the cross-gen characters? Those
Disney bought those as well. Marvel's got those as well now.
Oh wow!
But they're not doing anything with them either. But Garbage Man is essentially my version of Sludge, and some of the characters in there are going to be sort of revisited ideas from that we never got to fully develop in Sludge, and so there's a connection to Ultraverse fans out there to this book, definitely, that they would enjoy. I think see a lot of that stuff. Gentlemen, I went way over.
Yeah,
you've got to eat dinner. Are you going to get in trouble?
I daughter to dance, but I'm sorry that I went so long. with you guys.
No, this has been great.
For us, we feel bad. We've been people yell at us like you got to keep those shows shorter. And yesterday we did good, right, Nile? Yesterday we did good. 2 shows we kept them short.
Yeah.
We just today, I guess you're an old friend, so it's great to see you. And it just it didn't happen, but we love having you on. And anytime we love to have you come back on, please.
Yes,
and,
anytime.
And everyone out there, please check the link. The link to Garbage Man is there. Support Aaron. Support his work at DC.
Justice League.
Justice League. Yep. And Aaron, it's so great to talk to you. So great to have you on. And looks like I'll see you tomorrow on Comic Arts Pro Secrets.
All right.
We'll be on
Absolutely,
there tomorrow.
guys. Thank you and good night. Appreciate
Sounds
having
great.
me on. I really appreciate
Have
it.
a good night, Aaron. And
Thanks,
everyone, we'll close out with our crowdfunding call out. And Aaron, have yourself a great night. Enjoy your dinner. And you're always welcome back on the show.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you, buddy.
All right, Billy, let's check out our crowdfunding call out for tonight. So this is from Richard Meyer, and it's Iron Sights 2 Psychos graphic novel.
Yep.
So I'm going to play the video for everyone. Cause
I pledged to that.
Nice.
It's just too badass not to. Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Maybe I'll do the same.
Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and this is the promotional video for Iron Sights 2 Psychos. Not, as Kelsey Shannon thought, Iron Sights 2 Psychos. This is the sequel. I'm gonna be high energy and keep this quick, because my promotional video, if you remember from this one, it was like 22 minutes of me talking like this with some really, really loud, like cicadas, whatever you call those things. But this one's going to be high energy and quick. I'm going to try to get done in under 5 minutes. So this is Iron Sights 2. Okay, so the title is Iron Sights 2 Psychos, and 2 of the Psychos are on this cover, but I'm not going to tell you which 2. But sometimes I just call it Iron Sights 2. But it is definitely not called Iron Sights 2 Psychos. But anyway, this is the sequel to Iron Sights 1. Iron Sights 1 came out last year. It had really interesting history because I had Jawbreakers, which did like 11,000, and then Iron Sights 1, it did like 3,500. But it was that people were like, you haven't fulfilled Jawbreakers Lost Souls, so we're not gonna get anything. The thing is, of people who ordered both Jawbreakers Lost Souls and Iron Sights, it was like 4 to 1 which people liked more. So even though Iron Sights 1 had a lot less backers, the satisfaction was very, very high, and the demand for a sequel was extremely high. So I'm very excited about that, because if you missed out on Iron Sights 1, well, guess what? there's a perk where you can get Iron Sights 1 and 2 together, or if you're just weird and you just want to try out one, and you're like, I don't trust you, you can just get 1 by itself, or you can just get 2 by itself. And then there's some pinups. It's going to be a fairly simple, it's just going to be the Iron Sights 1 and that old poster, and then Iron Sights 2, and there's actually going to be 2 posters. You can get this one, or there's going to be another Esme poster. Esme is she's a cartel queen right now. She's running the show. Yeah, sometimes in her bathrobe. What do you have a problem with strong women? I hope you don't. So anyway, so you might be wondering, like, how far along are you? How far along are you? Oh, well, I wonder how far I am. I wonder if I'm completely finished with the interiors. We're talking about writing, bicanalist, penciling, inking, doing the tones, doing the zipatone, me lettering it. Oh, yeah, that's all done.
That's a 10-minute video, folks. So there's a bit of a preview of it. If you want to watch the rest of it, please do. Hey, look, our video's right here. And we're live right now. What? What? That's insane. That's when you know you're getting big.
Yeah.
Right there. But guys, check it out. It's awesome. I mean, your boy Zach here, got everything going. This is a great book. The art's awesome. The art
it really is. And he knows what he's doing. He is killing it on Indiegogo.
Yes.
And yeah, check it out. It's really cool. So I was to tell Aaron, it's such high profile that he has. The more he gets himself out there, the bigger it's going to be. But it's difficult, Nile, because it's tough when you're when you're drawing one of the biggest books in the country. You know what I mean? In the world, one of the most high profile books, and you can't blow that deadline. But I think if he gives himself a bigger stretch, he goes on caps. He'll I know he'll make it. He'll definitely make it. He just should give himself a little bit of a break, because, as you know, this is a grind. Like with me, this morning after our show, I woke up and we had just over 66,000.
Yeah. And
then while we were doing the video, I just checked the numbers and added up, and now we're just over $1,000 shy of 70,000.
Well, that's fantastic, because right before we did the show, wasn't it like $2,200? So you did about $1,200.
Yeah, and we're 24 backers away, 24 Ronin away from an army of 1,000 samurai.
Wow. That's
so,
incredible.
but it's a lot of work, I mean, again, as I said, this is hard work. You got to get out there. You got to do shows like ours. You got to go on other shows. Go on, like you were saying. It's business, so you want to go on someone that can help you, because every minute counts, every hour counts, every day counts for your campaign, because we all want to get this funded, and you get someone like Aaron being honest, and he's like, well, this is how much it's going to cost to make my book. And he's absolutely right. Like me and a lot of other people, we put a certain number out there because we want to hit that number in the first hour or so,
Yeah.
When you hit that number, right, you're funded right at the bat, then it's a strategy, Oh, you look better to Kickstarter. You look better to Indiegogo fan scene. Oh, wow, look at this guy.
Oh,
He's, you know what I mean? Oh, wow, this book's kicking ass. I'm gonna support that. When, like with us, we put out $20,000 for the 2 campaigns, but in all honesty, with art costs, with shipping, with all production costs, all printing, you really need like $40,000.
Oh yeah,
really do.
I don't think the cost to actually produce, self-publish it, to do all this on your own. I mean, when you're doing these campaigns, you really got to go over those goals. You really got to push for your stretch goals, because the consumers, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and stuff and whatnot, they understand how it works. But there's a lot of people out there that don't realize. They think, oh wow, someone made 150,000. Look at them. Well, no. How much was the cost to do everything? Are they only getting a 25-30% return at the end? I mean, that doesn't amount to much. It's a lot of passion to do it.
Yeah. Well, look at EVS with his book with Cyberfrog. I think he printed 13 or 14,000 books, right, of that edition, maybe more, higher. I talked to my printer today because I was looking at doing a chromium cover for a book we're going to do in the summer, and maybe we will. But my printer's like, you're out of your mind. And I'm like, why? And he said, because it costs we did a Chromium cover for someone, and it cost for 1,000 Chromium books. The bill was over $10,000. So you imagine you're printing 13,000 books with that cover. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And now it may not be $10 a cover. Maybe it's $8. You know what I mean? But still, that's a huge amount of money. And people don't realize how much money goes back into the actual projects.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, this isn't, we're not like the Image guys in the early 90s buying Vipers and stuff.
Or and then crashing the Viper and then going back out that afternoon to buy another Viper.
Yes, there you go.
But I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And again, that money too, that extra money will also fund the next campaign.
That's
right?
that's what you do. That's what it's all about, is to fund the next campaign. If you can give bonuses, you can give royalties to your creative staff, so much the better.
It's a business, dude.
What?
It's a business. It's like any other business.
And it's risky. It's a risky business. But what's cool is how we're all in this together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love how, yes, it is competition, but you can work with your peers to help share ideas, to help to bring your project to another fan. You know what I mean? To your fans, introduce your property to fans that may never have read your book by going on these various shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And because it's still a good industry. It really is a good industry with great creative people. Sometimes people get a little nuts, the child in all of us, because we are basically adolescents, I guess, being creative people, and people get a little emotional. They get a little crazy sometimes, Well,
you can stay out of the drama as best you can. Sometimes you get thrown into it.
Yeah. Stay away from the drama. Don't try to get someone to lose their job. You know what I mean? Or complain about them. Try to hurt their income, which we've seen happens. And but then again, those guys that were railroaded, that were attacked, minding their own business for the most part. They get the last laugh because the fans see beyond all that garbage.
Exactly.
And that's why a book like Jawbreakers, look what he's doing in what, 4 days, 5 days?
Yeah.
With two psychos kicking ass. It's great.
Yeah, he's almost at 50 grand. I mean, he's doing great. I mean, like you said, the community's great. Community's great, and I think, we preach this a lot that, comics are a passion. It's what we want to do. It's what we love. But again, if you're going to make money off of it and you want to live off it, then you got to also remember to think it's also a business, right?
Yes.
So, we try to push, and you're showing right now what can be done. You are, it's our, no fan left behind campaign.
Yeah.
Really.
And the thing was,
it's true, you can't leave your fans behind.
Nope. And this morning we got up, we got up and I saw that we were at 66,000 and I sent out updates. I wrote a press release. I sent that, to Mindy Lopkin, our designer. She sent it out via MailChimp, Then we launched the Kickstarter exclusive because the Kickstarter campaign did come first, and we have to differentiate these campaigns. You know what I mean? To show that they are two different campaigns. You can't have everything exactly the same.
No, you can't.
So Debbie's now getting emails. Well, where's the Indiegogo exclusive?
And hang tight.
She's like, trust me, it's coming, and you're gonna love it. But that's what we're dealing with all day.
Yeah.
And then of course, I've got my mainstream stuff. I finished a cover. Wes Hartman colored it. It's for Free Comic Book Day. So I finished the cover today for a book that's coming out May 4th. I think it's May 5th. May 5th, I think it is, Free Comic Book Day this year. So, you're always going. You're always moving. And then we have our fun show with this. I went live to talk to people, through my channel, my Billy Tucci crowdfunding channel and Facebook Live. So it's a lot of work. You got to keep doing it. But man, the reward is when people are sending you letters and they're responding to the updates. Holy crap! It makes your whole day. It's great.
It's unbelievable.
It's so great.
Changing lives, man. You're changing lives.
Yeah, well, they're changing
really
our lives. Yeah.
Oh, it's a give and take, man. It is. It's a two-way street there. You're supplying entertainment that allows people to escape for a little bit, and then they're fans. They're supporting what you're doing.
And what the crowdfunding platform is doing is that this is like Marvel comics circa 1962. It's turning a page, the page in the history of comic books, and that's what the fans are doing, because now the fans have the say. It's not the newsstand guys having the say. It's not, say, it's not the comic press having the say. It's not some comic book marketing person, from a company having the say of what gets out there. I mean, look at these books that that I pitched as Captain America. They passed on it,
Yeah.
It's not the retailers having the final say who gets what. This is the fans are taking the industry into their own hands.
Exactly.
And it is a service industry. And here's us as creators. We're giving them what they want. And if we give them what they want, it's successful. And if they don't like it, they don't like it, and they won't buy it.
Yeah. And what's the awesome thing that I've started to witness since we've really started to journey on this path is that there's no discrimination when it comes to, we'll say, your level of your career, how far you've come or whatnot. There are guys, and I'm going to use it as an example, though. I mean, there's guys that have been in the industry for 25 years that are giving feedback, reaching out, being open to up-and-coming creators, and really just taking that, that independent self-publishing culture and literally almost like passing it out and handing it down like, this is how you do it.
Yes.
You don't act like this. You don't act like that. This is how you do it. You compete with one another, but you work with one another, and it's fun.
Yep. It is. And that's what this is. And we're all putting, I think what's cool about crowdfunding is that it's putting the fun back in funny business. Yeah. And the fun back in crowdfunding, aren't we?
Oh, indeed.
That.
Right there. That required the pipe.
Yes. And maybe on that one we should bid adieu.
Yes,
to
we'll
our,
bid
to our
adieu.
family out here.
Yes, and then tomorrow night we'll be back on 9 p.m. Eastern Time with the very talented Meredith Finch.
Yes, can't wait for that.
Beautiful, beautiful book. I can't wait to talk to her. I really want to pick her brain on some stuff. So, all right, Billy. Great show, great night. Chat has been very lively. We have knighted a few new wrenches tonight, and they did a fantastic job. So, guys, stay in the know with what we're doing. Help continue to grow our channel. We're on a steady growth. Please share these streams, share our channel. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep growing. Let's keep creating a great, positive platform for all creators from all walks of life, from all over the world, an opportunity to show what they have. And a great
amazing. Thank you to the one, the only, the master, Mr. Aaron Lopresti.
Yes. Fantastic. God, he's such a great artist, huh?
He really is. He really is.
Beautiful stuff. I can't wait for my garbage man.
Yeah. I hope he's got to expand it.
Yes.
Give himself some time. Let him enjoy this. Because
Definitely.
it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. Like as EVS said, it's like a political campaign.
Yeah.
So so it's great. I love it. See, I feed off of this. I haven't taken a nap in the longest time.
Yeah. I'm glad you're not napping.
I was sending out my stream because I love taking naps. And but up until about 2 weeks ago, when I really got into this campaign and started ready to launch it and start really back into like full time, I haven't taken a nap since.
And he started eating sandwiches with the crust on them and not cut in tiny little triangles.
No, maybe that I'm not quite ready for that one yet, buddy.
You'll get there, Chief. You'll get there.
Right, thank you.
All right, buddy. Everyone have a great night. We will see you tomorrow with Meredith Finch. So long,
Peace.
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Toodles.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Crowdfunding Comics. We look forward to hanging out with all of our crowdfunding fans
Don't
every
ever say
time
toodles
we go
when you have
live.
a pipe.
And don't forget to click the link below
Don't
and
talk
subscribe
over
to
my
our channel.
voiceover.
And there's a little bell. You may want to hit that too. This way you get all the great
we've all heard it
notifications when we
before.
go live and when we upload
Toodles.
some awesome content. You want to follow us? Sure, go right ahead at Twitter at
Toodly
Crowdfund Comics with an X, Instagram Crowdfunding Comics, and Facebook at Crowdfunding Comics. Till next time, crowdfunding fans, we'll see you
just
soon.
too much fun on
We'll
these
see
shows.
you soon.
Bye-bye. Home run.